So, all right, well, welcome everyone. We are excited to have you joining us here for our virtual teacher externship that's being hosted by ElevateEdAZ and the Center for the Future of Arizona and the Arizona Business and Education Coalition. Just as a reminder, we ask that you will please keep your cameras on for the duration of the session and ensure that your microphone is muted if you are not speaking. Sometimes it can pick up some background and maybe impact the recording quality that we'll have. Today's session is actually being hosted by Clint Harrington. Clint is from, it's Pilkington, right?
Pilkington Construction, correct.
And we're excited always to have industry leaders, right, speaking to our educators and really talking about the things that are important here for everybody to learn. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn the time over to Clint.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, everybody. So Clint Harrington, I'm the president of Pilkington Construction here in Yuma, Arizona. I'm also involved in ABEC, right? I see Camille Ursery on the line, familiar face. We've been working with Miss Ursery at Crane Middle School. So a little bit about me. I'm born and raised in Yuma. I kind of followed a non-traditional secondary education path. I went to the University of Arizona and got an engineering degree, you know, from a construction family. And like most kids, push doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? Follow one of those things. And then I came back to Yuma and I did a 4-year technical apprenticeship. So kind of reverse order. And so I think that gives me a little bit different perspective on CTE and just the workforce and construction. And I feel obligated to kind of share my experience with right now the local Yuma kids and trying to maybe make them tilt their head a little bit and looking at what their options are. And I think they're all integrated together, right? Whether you're going to be in culinary, you're going to be a lawyer, doctor, in construction, and I want to talk about that in a second, that I think the process and what you need to be ready for a workforce are very similar no matter what industry you go into. We talked a little bit about what I would be looking for in a new hire, the things that we see that the new hires don't have. And I would say the number one thing is keep your phone in your pocket, right? It kind of goes without saying. You see a lot of the kids. I have a high school kid, junior high kid, and a 5th grader. And so I feel like I get to see the spectrum of everybody right now and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Number 2 are soft skills that seem to be underdeveloped with the kids, which roll into communication. And I think I only want to pick a couple things here. The willingness to try and solve a problem before just coming to dad or the boss and say, I don't know how to do this. And so, really try to get them to take a stab at it, write the analysis, write me a summary of what's going on and let's work on it. So kind of stating that in ABEC, I feel that it's just a critical thinking exercise here. So, and I believe that from my engineering education, that the approach to any problem is very similar, whether you're cooking culinary Thanksgiving dinner for 100 people, or you're doing a marshmallow shooter in an engineering class. And let me go through the steps and then we can talk about how we apply those and how I'd like to see those same critical thinking steps applied to the kids that are the next generation of construction professionals or fill in the blank, right? First responder professionals. The way I break it down is the first step is always to define the problem, right? And I think this right away is one of the soft skills in communicating. I find in my industry, if I was to email you, Paul, and try to describe a problem that we're having on a construction site, you would be surprised at how difficult that is for many adults to accurately describe that problem without sending me a photo or, and so how do you do that? And we tell our people, if you're going to send an email to your husband or wife and they have no idea what's going on, they have to be able to kind of understand what you're saying without really being in the construction industry. And so define the problem. That's soft skills and communication. That sounds like an easy thing, but you'd be amazed, right, at how hard that can really be to do. And so right off the bat, I think it's good for the kids to write down, what it is they're trying to solve. And Miss Ursery, and one of our projects would be a marshmallow shooter, right? We're trying to get 3 little marshmallows, two hula hoops that are 6 foot apart from one circle to the other. It also makes them think about what is the problem? What am I trying to solve here? Whether that's this engineering problem or I'm trying to cook Thanksgiving dinner for 100 people. I think it's important to write that down. Number 2 would be to state the knowns and unknowns, right? What are we trying to solve? You know, what are the things that we know? What are the things that we're trying to solve for? Of course, this changes a little bit, whether you're being first responder, culinary, construction, engineering. Number 3 would be to formulate your plan or your design, right? And I think that too, whether it's the marshmallow shooter or we're doing a big balsa wood glider project next week at Crane, that's going to be amazing. I think it's important, you know, to have the kids try and solve this problem, try to define and then design what it is they're trying to do. You know, with my 3 kids, I see so often they're used to Googling on their iPad, and if they don't find an instant answer, they don't know. And that's trickled into, and I have some young people working for us that have come out of CTE for Arizona Western College, and the ones that are good at saying, I don't know, but I'm going to sit down and try to do this, Clint, and then I'll come to you, you know, stand out above the ones that just kind of don't have, any kind of idea of where to start. Where to start. Number 4 would be a cost estimate. You know, I believe that everything in this world has to do with price. And I think it's important that the kids are always tying money to everything. And I can show you an example in a second. When we did the marshmallow shooter, we arbitrarily assigned, you know, a quarter for every popsicle stick, $1 for a plastic spoon. And the idea is to get them to understand that everything in this world has a cost associated with it, and that needs to be a part of everything they're doing. And time is also something that they need to think about, to write down, to communicate. And then in construction, because that's what I do, this is number 6, you guys, is step number 6 is actually getting to pick up a hammer or to build. And I want the kids, when we do ABEC here in Yuma, to understand that there's a lot of thought and communication and design that goes in before you ever pick up a hammer or you ever pick up a frying pan or whatever it is that you're trying to do. You know, a lot of thinking before you do. So number 6 is construct. And then in our activities, we always have a post-activity analysis. And I saw this from a TED talk of a B-52 bomber that talked about how after their runs, they would sit down, their missions. And it was, the most important part was to ask without blame, what went right, what went wrong, and what could we have done better next time, right? Otherwise, there's no lessons learned in this process. And so I think that really what I'm showing you here is think, do, and then think again. And these are the steps that we use in construction, that I use in engineering, and that I think that the kids could use, no matter what they're approaching, right? I can't find the remote control to the TV doesn't have batteries. So what's the problem? Well, I only have one AA. Well, how are we going to fix that? And I really believe that these are the steps to any kind of successful conflict resolution or problem solving. And having 3 kids and a bunch of employees and teaching in ABEC and the junior highs, I think that everybody is so quick to rush to try to solve a problem or find the answer to the problem that we're not writing these steps down, writing the things that we know and don't know down, and taking the time to ask ourselves, does this make sense for cost, for schedule? Then we do it, and then we can look at it and say, you know what, that wasn't really good, right, Ms. Ursary? That marshmallow shooter cost $10 theoretically, as opposed to it cost $2. And even though it performed better, it wouldn't work in industry. And so, kind of circling back around, it's really just critical thinking and writing those critical thinking steps down so that the kids can go back and see, what worked well, what didn't work well. And it sounds simple, but it's amazing how difficult that can be for kids and adults, right? And to really not jump to step number 6, or to not touch on what do we know, what do we don't know? We know that we have, and let me share my screen while I'm kind of jabbering on here, and I can show you guys some of the examples that we have. And I think no matter what you're teaching, as I see everybody's logged on, and we have a couple, let's see here, bioscience, which I'm actually a biosystems engineer, Rio Rico High School, teacher for magnet manager, instructional leading. I don't see how any of this wouldn't apply, or how these steps wouldn't apply to whatever you guys are teaching. It seems like everything you approach needs to be, you got to think, do, and then think to be successful at it. And let me pull up one of our examples here. All right, and let's see. So hopefully everybody can see my screen with step 1, develop the project. Can you all see that?
We've got it, Clint.
Thumbs up, okay. So these are all tailored a little bit. You have kind of that overall, what I would call an engineering, analytical, problem-solving process. And then, no matter what you're tackling, you tweak them a little bit. This happens to be the marshmallow shooter that we did at Crane. Let me kind of minimize this here. And what you got is you got the steps kind of written down, develop the project, conceptual design, your cost estimate, your schedule. We went and procure materials, build, and then, the first couple rounds, it seemed like a lot to overwhelm the kids. We didn't ask them to do a post-activity analysis initially, trying to get them used to the idea. Course safety, and we inject physics and math. I mean, there's every step of this, there's an opportunity to couple this with an AZ CIS if you're, in junior high, or one of the lessons. I think to do a marshmallow shooter without injecting math, science, communication, English skills, it just becomes a fun project, but you're missing the point, So here's a diagram of what we had from the launch zone, because you got to define your problem, 15 foot, 36-inch target zone. And what we did for the estimate worksheet was we gave them just random values for things to let the kids, see how much their marshmallow shooter would cost. And then, if there was a tie, which there wasn't, there was one girl that kind of killed everybody and did really well. But, the tiebreaker would be is who could build it for the least amount of money. I'll stop share with that with you. So the takeaway from this for you guys and teaching the kids, I think that, hey, Deb, I didn't see you on there before, is to really make them sit down and write out these things. And I know with my kids, if I don't make them define the problem and communicate that. So an easy way to do that would be to generate an email, to somebody like me. What are we trying to accomplish? What is the problem or the thing that we're trying to do? We're going to state the knowns and unknowns, right? This party of 100 people for Thanksgiving, they're all going to show up at once, or they're going to come in at tables of 10, right? Or, because there's a whole time issue of putting what in the oven. You think about it, all of these simple things that we do every day are really quite complex. And I think that we process all of these things, and you don't realize that you're doing this all the time, but to sit down and do this engineering process with everything, it really, I think, makes you think about it, and it makes next time you tackle it, you realize, oh, there was a pitfall here, or it didn't pencil out for cost, or it took me twice as long to do dinner, didn't work. This is the backbone, and Deb will attest to it. We try to apply this across all the ABEC modules, because I believe that anything that you are doing can be done better if you apply these steps to it. Before I keep going on, does anybody have any questions?
No questions, at least in the chat, but if anybody does, feel free to unmute. We did have a couple comments that maybe we could ask some folks to elaborate on a little bit. Camille, you put in practice definitely helps them understand why. Would you have anything that you would elaborate on that statement, being as you implement this particular activity?
Yes, I just wanted to say that practice definitely helps, because just like he was saying, Clint was saying about with our own children at home, we always kind of feel like they're not doing something because they're acting dumb, or they're acting silly, or they're acting like they don't know how to do it, but, or they're just being lazy. But you know, and that's kind of like what the mindset it seems like at school when they're doing, you know, we give them the project, tell them about the project, and they're like, oh, we want to build. But once the process is practiced and taught to them, and then they understand that there's a process, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I would have just done this and wasted that material, you know, and then I would have been like, oh, I got to make it again and make it again and make it again, you know. And yes, that's part of engineering, but also you want to plan and design and brainstorm with your group and, you know, come up with those. And so once they start to see the meaning behind the process, it starts to make more sense to them, and they get it, and it's just great to see like they know how to do it. And I mean, we started with the kids going, the problem is I don't know how to do this, you know, like that was their answer instead of, you know, the actual problem, what we were trying to solve, you know. And so practice definitely helps, and they apply it and understand it. And once they do, then they can do it well.
It's great. Great. Ashley made the comment to the effect that having students complete reflections after they practice those assignments kind of helps them think outside the box and develop that growth mindset. Ashley, anything that you would add to that, or as you see this particular project, any connections that you could make within your own classroom?
So I teach statistics and biotechnology at Bioscience High School to seniors. And I don't teach engineering, that is way beyond my pay grade. But I see that with them is that, especially in statistics, or just in things in biotech we talk about, and they're like, well, I don't really remember how to do this. And it's like, okay. So I like to do the part where I give them something to do first before I even explain it to them. And I say, all right, do your best on it. If you don't get it, it's okay. But just try your hardest. If you have to look stuff up, it's okay. Don't be afraid to look things up. I notice the same thing. If they're not sure how to do something, they just kind of like, all right, well, I'll just wait for someone to show me. And it's like, no, you're seniors. Like, you need to be able to be resourceful, learn this on your own. And I have them do reflections because it really allows them to see how much they're growing. And so when they first thought like, oh, I didn't know how to do this, and it's like, well, by the time we did the third practice set, you were a pro at it. Like, you knew what you were doing. So it shows them the power of like, you know, they can get there. You know, they don't understand something. It's just, they don't know it yet. I think the whole power of yet. And then I get I was way off. Like I was going a complete opposite direction. So it's like, it allows them to kind of see how they're growing. And obviously after they learn how to do it, but I always like starting it with a challenge because it forces them to learn something. It forces them to find the answer on their own. So
great.
It's just what popped into my head as Clint was talking. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I do this all the time.
Great. Continue to put those comments in the chat, post questions as well. Clint, back to you.
You know, and this is actually what we do every day with my team. You know, we get a problem thrown in our lap, and there's a lot of times there's references, but there's nobody that we can call. There's nothing I can Google, you know, aside from references. And so, you know, after doing this and having a very successful team with me, I get a call, hey, Clint, we need to, you know, one of the classrooms burned down. We need a cost estimate on how to fix this, how much time, you know, is any of it salvageable, you know, and so you're on the spot, and we go through this same process, you know, and I think that, like I said, you know, it's a handy tool, and it's my belief, you know, so much that I think that everybody would benefit in the world if you have this skill set that you could apply towards anything. And if you're a surgeon, you're cutting somebody open, I'm sure, you know, they do a lot of planning before they just pick up a scalpel and go, right? And so, you know, to kind of circle back around, you know, for the kids, it's a lot of soft skills, a lot of communication, the willingness to try to solve the problem on their own. And I hate to say it, but keeping that phone down is a big deal. It's one of those things that we fight with all the time, unless you're, of course, using it for references or using it for business. But, you know, I have 3 of my kids are at home doing the homeschool thing because of COVID. And I think my number one problem is the phones, right? Is the distractions. Let's see. So let me show you guys some of the other stuff we're doing. I don't want to get too, you know, sidetracked from you, but instead, let me show you. So what we're presenting in ABEC, I got a couple little short videos of how we're trying to communicate with the kids. And now these, I tease Fabian in my office that he's going to be a movie star in 30 years. These kids are going to grow up and remember the Fabian Lopez construction videos now. So bear with me, they're not long, but I think you guys would probably like to see them. So let's see here. Okay, do you see Fabian here? You guys watching that? Okay.
Hello, my name is Fabian Lopez. I am a project manager here at Pilkington Construction. Today I'm going to be talking about the 7 steps of construction. We will be discussing pre-design, design, bidding process, pre-construction, financial assistance, occupancy, and construction.
If you guys notice, I'll pause it there. Until this point, it's all been thinking, right? And of course, this is, tailored to construction, but it's all about that. There's thinking, there's planning, there's budget, there's time before we ever pick up a hammer or whatever we're going to do. And I think that normally kids would think that you just start building and there's not a lot of thought to it. And that's one of the, you can be a smart person in construction. And I think there's a lot of thought that if you're not smart enough to go in engineering or something, that you got to stay in Yuma and do construction. Of course, I'm it's a Yuma perspective. And it's my belief that's not true. I'm a product of Yuma that went to engineering, came back to construction. And so I really want to show them, there's a lot more opportunity for you guys. But you can't not have soft skills and you think you're going to be in construction. I believe there's no avenue for any kids without soft skills, communication, and the willingness to try to solve the problem, except for maybe even the video game kids have to do that on some level, right? Whether they realize they're doing it or not. So let me keep going here. Here's some of the projects we've done, Arizona Western College.
What does a day in the construction industry consist of? Well, it varies. It all depends on which type of construction you go into. There are many different types of constructions, such as roadwork, commercial buildings.
Won't bore you guys anymore with that one, but you get the point, right? And it's interesting that when I watched that video, my sister who does video edited it for Fabian, and I said, it's too busy for me. I sit there and I watch it and there's too much stuff flying around. But then I got to think about when my kids are watching their cartoons and doing stuff and they're used to all that stuff on the screen. And so, it's an interesting thing we were talking about earlier today, Deb, is how to provide this in a palatable form for the kids today. And what I always think that they're going to want to see is probably not quite what my kids would agree that they want to see. And so we're really trying to do that. We're doing plug and play construction modules for kids to take home during the COVID pandemic that they can still get these critical thinking lessons done while they can't be in school or in school. That's the kind of nice thing about it. And these videos we're posting on YouTube and Facebook so that they can kind of watch them too. And I think that's something to remember, at least for me, is that the way that I learned and what appeals to me is not the way that the kids, and you guys know this, are, a little bit different than the old school. I feel like a dinosaur. I graduated high school in 95 and graduated U of A in 2002. And so when I see what they're doing now, the first time my kid was doing math and I made him do it my way and he flunked it and he came home and he said, Dad, we don't do math like you do anymore. And I felt bad for doing that to him, but all right. I got another video for you guys really quick. And let's see here.
Residential buildings
Let's see.
and bridge work.
Thank you, Fabian. Fabian's going to be a local celebrity here before too long. So other kinds of
Bob Ross of Yuma.
yeah. So let me show you really quick. I'll show you what I'm looking at. We have an amazing Facebook page. Can you guys see this right here? It's the Yuma ABEC Facebook page. You guys see that? Am I sharing that correctly? You can see all the projects I'm scrolling through. So we have ag, construction. There's culinary. It's like the ag and the construction's taken off the best. But you can see here, if you guys see the bridges, one of the junior high teachers challenged the kids with the same rough, engineering design process to design a bridge out of popsicle sticks that could hold a gallon of milk. And, there you go. Deb said she wants that one in her backyard right there. That's a nice bridge. And you got, it's amazing how creative they got. You got the turtle bridge. And some of my friends that were doing these with their kids reached out and said, hey, Clint, I know you're doing ABEC. We love it. We got to weld this bridge with our daughter, Sophie. And, it's kind of interesting that maybe we're dragging the parents into this critical thinking process too. You can see Fabian's videos here. I got one more I wanted to show you. Here's some of the agricultural stuff that is doing at Crane. Crane Junior High is on fire with the ABEC stuff. And let's see here. Let's try this other video. And Fabian's got a third video coming out, he tells me. So they're getting better.
Hi, my name is.
You guys see that one?
And I'm a project manager here at Pilkington Construction. Construction plans are important. Construction plans don't always get the recognition that they deserve, even though they are a very important part of documenting during the project development. Blueprints are very important. They are the tool that's used to communicate the details of the project as an industry standard. Following the project plans plays a critical role in looking ahead and properly scheduling tasks.
All right, I'll spare you there. If you want to watch them, you can go to our Facebook page, and there should be a ton more. We challenge the local community to upload videos in their industry, and it's amazing how many people are watching them, right, Dad? It seems like they're kind of becoming surprisingly popular. So, but they all follow that guideline that we've gone over. So I'll quit talking here in a second and see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Just want to make sure everybody knows that Deb Rader with ABEC has put links in the Dropbox to a lot of these resources. So if you're interested in following up on those will be in there as well. And also go take a look at the ABEC, Yuma ABEC Facebook page. I pulled that up, and it is Yuma ABEC. Should be able to find it pretty easily.
YumaABEC.com.
Okay, great. And so that's the website. So there's a website, and then there's also the Facebook page as well. So I'll type that into the chat so that everybody has it.
Yeah, and let me see here. I could show you if I stop the share and then I share again. Interesting enough, it sounds like a marshmallow shooter project. It ought to be a no-brainer, right? I would challenge everybody, on this to try that project. It's simple. It didn't cost much. And you could see where you have difficulties in defining the problem, your soft skills. I think you'd be amazed at how much trouble everybody has with these things and how much practice it really takes to hone these skills in. So here's the Yuma ABEC website. That's actually my boss right here. Of course, you can see the modules we're doing: ag, construction, engineering, public safety. And some of them are more popular and more successful than others. I think we're in 7 schools right now. And I thought it would be a lot easier than it's turned out to be. It's amazing how often you have to kind of do this process. And I think the idea is repetition. We start with little projects, and then we get bigger and bigger projects because the principal at Crane Junior High wanted to build a baseball dugout. And we said, wait, hold on, let's do marshmallow shooters first. Otherwise it would just be, bananas out there. But the goal is to do a baseball dugout. In my opinion, we just need to get this process down, and then we can do wonderful things. So questions, comments? This is my first externship, so you guys got to be easy on me. I'm not sure if I'm answering the questions, if I'm reaching the right target.
Clint, kind of a related question. Ashley at Bioscience was asking about students that are interested in unpaid internships, specifically for engineering in the Phoenix area. And I'll follow up with her specific to that because I think we could support some of those things. But what are some of the ways, or are there opportunities for students, probably a little bit older, but to participate in job shadow or internships with your company? Or do you see that companies are interested in doing that? And sort of what might be a process to get involved with something maybe a little bit more engaging or a little bit more involved, like a job shadow or a field trip or, something like that?
So the internship, I think it's mutually beneficial. There's a lot of big construction companies in Phoenix, you guys. Core Construction is a big powerhouse. They support a lot of the NAU kids. The big construction companies realize that if they can grab the smart, talented young men and women coming out of college, they can really tailor them into what they want them to be. And I think that it doesn't need to be unpaid. I think they should be paid because they're providing value. One of the parts that we don't worry about is one of the platforms that we use, that McCarthy uses, Core, is we're working off of iPads now, and so that there is an advantage to, to having the phone always glued to your hand. And so, everybody in our office, the people in the field, we work off iPads, we work off a construction app. Most of us are on one called Procore. And what I found is that the interns, we just had one this summer, we hired kids out of the CTE program here in Yuma, is that they're very quick to catch on. So that's something that we don't worry about, is them adapting to our software. It's those soft skills. It's the things we talked about before. I think that construction companies would gobble up all the smart young men and young women that you guys have in high school and in college. And I know in Core Construction's situation, they even pay for part of people's construction management degrees out of NAU. We do that for the local kids here at AWC. I have a gentleman in my office that we pay for his school, and so, and it's because the kids train correctly and caught early enough, they're gold. And so we're looking for those gold mines. Visiting the job sites anymore with COVID, I think it's become a lot more difficult, and there's just liability. But what's interesting about COVID is there's always good and bad from every situation. And we found that it pushed us to be remote. And here in Yuma, we're visiting job sites, there again with Zoom and filming things and doing FaceTime. And so I think you get experience with that. But if you guys had students in Phoenix or Tucson or anywhere, I would have them reach out to a construction company. And if they will keep that phone in their pocket, they can communicate. And if they will try to solve problems, these simple things we're talking about, it doesn't matter to me whether they know how to do construction or not. I can take that person and I can make them an asset very quickly.
So I had a quick question for you, Clint. You kind of talked about your career path that was a little diverted, right, from what it was originally. If you were talking to, a 14 or a 15-year-old now, what do you wish that you would have known then, right, about your career path and how you would have maybe planned, right, or identified what that path might look like?
And we had 2 ABEC meetings earlier today, so I've kind of been talking about it, Mike, all day. I think we get caught in thinking, and as parents, we tell our kids that there's 1 or 2 career paths, right? There's a doctor, lawyer, engineer. They got to go to college. In my experience, I think you can do it all, right? If you're a doctor, it doesn't hurt that construction. My lawyer buddy loves to work wood, and I think it makes you a better. If you're going to take somebody apart, be a surgeon, it can't hurt to know how a building comes apart, right? I think these are all skills, and the kids they don't need to focus on one or worry about which path is the only one. There's a lot of parallel paths going on, and they should grab all this knowledge and keep sticking it in their pockets, and so even if you don't have any interest in construction, I would say take a class. There's value in learning on how we communicate and solve problems. And if you even want to you're not interested in ag, I think take a class, and learn. It will make you a more rounded individual, a more valuable employee to whoever you go work for. Tom Tyree, local county superintendent, as part of ABEC and with Deb and I, and we say that the challenge is winning the hearts and the minds of the moms, right? Is who tell their kids, you want to go do this or that. My family was like, Clint, you want to go be an engineer? We're in construction. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but we ought to remind them that there's a lot of things out there, and that you never really want to close any doors, keep them all open moving forward, because that'll, as you guys all know, that looks different from when we really should be starting in grade school, right? Junior high, high school. And as you go to, into college, it's a dynamic perspective, in my opinion. And I think unless you're really paying attention and realizing there's value in all of it, then you kind of close yourself off into looking down one small path. And in my case, I came back around to construction. I never thought I was. And if I would have had a closed mind, closed perspective, I probably would have stayed in engineering and maybe not been as happy.
Clint, to that point, you talk about the importance of parents sometimes in those decisions. And let's specifically to construction in this case, just because that's your field. If you had a parent sitting across from you saying, you know, my son or daughter wants to go into construction, and I'm really discouraging them from doing it because of kind of all of the old stereotypes, you know, of that. What messaging or what message would you deliver to a parent, you know, specifically around that?
Yeah, you don't want your kid to be a dirty, dumb construction worker, right?
Right,
You know?
exactly. Digging holes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that there's opportunity in whatever field. If you're hardworking, and you know, you don't have to be the person digging the ditches. You should start there. I firmly believe that, right? I got in trouble when I was in first grade cutting the neighbor's cactus gardens down. I was working every free second all the way. I'd come back from U of A and they'd make me go to work. And had I missed out all those summers of digging, I think I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so I think it's important, no matter what career you're in, you gotta start from the bottom. But if you're smart, you know, if you communicate well, if you're hardworking, you're going to rise up into a position of authority that makes good money, you know. And I think that's really the message. There's wonderful opportunities no matter which direction you go into. I mean, pick a career path and you can't tell me that there's not somebody at the top and the bottom. It just depends on, you know, what kind of person you are. Are you going to stay at the bottom, or are you going to work your way up to the top? But there's money in construction, there's money in education, there's money in all of this stuff. And I think that you got to do what makes you happy. And if you do what makes you happy, then you can excel. And, you know, the money's the big question, right? We ask questions of the junior high kids, and then we go out and we answer them out in the field. And we've done that in construction and ag, and I think we're working on it in culinary right now. The number one question: how much money am I going to make, right? And they can work with, Deb, help me if I'm saying this wrong, with AZCIS. There's a module where you can type in what career path you want, and it'll tell you how much money you're going to make. And it's interesting to me because you can make as much money, I think, in most of these fields is the hard work, the dedication that you're willing to put into it for the most part. You know, I think the effort is the limiting factor, not the career path, you know, but most people are trying to steer their kids into being a surgeon because they don't want to be a dirty construction worker. They don't make enough money. You know, I think you can make enough money in construction, right? And so it's really about finding something that's going to make you happy. And I really believe, like, I love to come to work every day. And if you follow a career path that you love to do, like I'm sure many of you on the Zoom call here, then you'll make enough money and you'll rise because you love it, and your passion will be there, you know. And I think the message should be, find something that you're interested in and then work hard at it. You know, work the hardest, make yourself invaluable to somebody like me that's going to pay you a ton of money to do this, you know.
You know, one point very quickly that you're saying, Clint, about the income, that seems to be an ongoing thing, right? I think both with parents, I think there's a perception that if you work in construction or a skilled craft profession, that you can't make any money, or there's not a career path, right? Mm-hmm. And that was really brought from our collaboratives, that information. We put a special section on the Build Your Future site that actually talks about that. It talks about the position, right, and what it pays here in Arizona, so people can see, because I think there's a real misperception. Most college students are coming out making $35,000 to $40,000 a year, and all the entry positions, right, as a skilled crafts is paying that or more. But I think there's a disconnect.
Correct. And you know, when I came out of U of A as an ag biosystem engineer, I think it was like 38 grand, you know, which wasn't bad. It just, you can make a lot more of that in construction, and especially if you get in, you put your time in, and you really pay attention to what you're doing. You know, there's the difference between just being there and really trying to become the strongest, best version of yourself, right? And then, you know, I think at some point you make enough money. I mean, how much money do you really need to make? You know, but in construction, you know, if you rise up, you can make enough. I have people that work for me that make, you know, $100,000 plus a year easy. You know, and they're not college educated. So
feel free to throw questions in the chat or hop off of mute if you'd like. Don't want Paul and I to monopolize all the questions, but can definitely pepper Clint with a couple more. Clint, we've got a variety of teachers, counselors, program folks on the call that we'll be encountering, students that may want to go into construction kind of crafts, skilled trades, but I'm not sure, maybe a little bit of information on the size of your construction company, how many employees you have. You showed a little bit about the types of project, but also curious, in addition to the skilled trades, which is obviously a position that you probably hire a lot for, what are some of the other positions that, occupations that you have within your construction company that maybe we wouldn't think would be, in construction that might be of interest to the group as we've got some business teachers on as well.
Yeah, so we do work in 5 states, I'm sorry. I run about 25 employees. We do a lot of Department of Defense. We do a lot of education. We do a lot of healthcare. We team up with a lot of Native American owned corporations to do federal work, which is really kind of wonderful. I get to do all the cool projects, right? When they want someone to build a hospital in the bottom of the Grand Canyon at the Havasupai tribe, we get to go down there and we get a shot at it. And so, there's the traditional people that you would think. There's the men and women out in the field working, swinging hammers and doing stuff. There's also a whole team in the office of accountants, project managers, which are just problem solvers. They're not out digging. They're on the computer, office poodles, as I call myself, after all this time. And they're just going through and they're getting problems thrown in their lap all day long, and they have to resolve them peacefully. And they all involve money. They all involve time. And so this skill set here is what they go through. We have pre-construction people. Got a brilliant young woman in my office named Katie Pilkington. And when somebody asks us to build a high school, we have to provide, a 50-page color resume about all of our skills and all the past projects and write these wonderful narratives. And Katie is just amazing, And so she's not outside and she's not fighting with people on the phone over money and stuff. But what else do we have in the office? We have pre-construction coordinators. We have estimators, a really wonderful job for those that want to, play with numbers and work with millions of dollars. You get a set of blueprints and you have to figure out what it's worth. So that's another probably very difficult, the most difficult position here in the office. Trying to think what else. I would ask you guys maybe to watch some of the ABEC stuff that we do, and you guys can zoom in and watch our balsa wood competition and see what we're doing down here. I think that, construction being a cousin to engineering, and a cousin to accounting, if you will. And we do a lot of business development. That's my job anymore, as much as I would love to be outside, just taking my head off and doing something fun. Today I had 7 meetings, and a lot of that is business development and with the school boards and getting out here and talking to the kids. And we met with Arizona Community Foundation this morning about getting grants to try to bring the South County schools online with ABEC. And so there's a lot of goofy stuff like that when my kids ask me, "What do you do all day, Dad?" And I say, well, I Zoom, I talk on the phone, right? I sign checks, it doesn't sound like much of a job, does it? But it's not so bad. It's far from digging outside in the heat.
Great. Cool.
If anybody that wants an internship, please reach out to me. Of course, they have to do it in Yuma or White River Indian Reservation. We're working kind of all around Arizona, not in the Phoenix metropolitan or Tucson area. But if you guys have somebody that wants to, work in construction for a paid internship over the summer, reach out to me. I'll make sure it happens.
Great. Other questions for Clint? Sweet. Well, Paul loaded some resources into the chat. The Greater Phoenix Chamber Foundation has got some great work with Build Your Future and has information on construction careers. But what's cool is exactly what Clint's communicated, which is, most industries, and I have the opportunity, we have about we have over 70 industry partners that work with us, work with the Greater Phoenix Chamber, the Tucson Chamber. And most of the time when we're in a room with industry partners in particular, it's just what Clint talked about, the soft skills, problem solving, communication, and really being able to hit that home with your students. So even if you're a media arts teacher, graphic design teacher, I'm looking at Josh there, that Build Your Future website could be a really cool place to send your students just to get information on that. Because when you talk about those foundational skills that employers are looking for, they're all the same. And I think what Clint shared today is with some of those projects, the balsa wood project, the marshmallow shooter project, what's some great projects to bring into your classroom, regardless of what you teach, to teach those key skills around problem solving and those kinds of things. I think as you look at the ABEC, the ABEC website, the Facebook page, I think those are some tools that you could take to a potential industry partner and say, look, here's how we could collaborate. Oftentimes we reach out to industry and say, hey, could you come in and either donate money or donate supplies? And instead, I think what Clint's been able to share are some real tangible ways that you could reach out to industry partners and say, we have some projects that we'd love to have your help on, and have some of your folks come in and support us through and show students how you apply it. So just some things that I'm thinking about. And unfortunately, I'm very far removed from the classroom anymore, but just thinking, about those opportunities that I would have loved to brought in with my high school agriculture students, and those connections that would have been really cool to make. Other questions, comments, please take a look at those resources. We've got some time before we're totally done, or we can wrap up a couple minutes early as well.
I noticed there was a comment in the chat, Clint, that asked if your company did any shadowing opportunities. I know you mentioned apprenticeships, but do you have anything that might give some of these students a taste, right, of what it is?
I haven't been asked to provide a shadowing opportunity. I would absolutely. I feel compelled to give back into just, it's very simple for us to show, especially, the Yuma kids, what this looks like, and the only way they're going to know is they'd probably sit in my office and go like, this is boring. Right? You're just on the phone all the time.
You may not want them to shadow yours. Maybe there's an exciting one, right?
Sure. Yeah, they could go out, and if anybody has an opportunity, anybody wants to see that, I'd love to make that happen. We can have them go out and look at the job sites. They can watch the project managers and see. There's a lot more thinking in construction than you might think. No pun intended, right? So,
well, I feel like that's something that's missed all the time. I grew up in construction, and I didn't realize as a kid the math skills that my dad had. Right, to be able to lay out a staircase, right? The math that it takes to do that. I was just dumbfounded as I got older because I didn't realize how complicated it was. But yeah, in rafters, right? This was before people could get prefabricated trusses. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a lot of incredible, not only problem solving, but mathematic and even STEM related skills.
Especially if you're going to be successful. There's people on every job site in every industry that there's, that they're thinking and doing and moving up. And there's always a couple of people that aren't, and so I would say that the kids shouldn't focus on the bad examples, and there's always bad examples out there. You want to be a trailblazer and moving up. And for somebody like me, there's not enough talented people out there. So if you make yourself, useful to me, I'm going to pay you a ton of money, and I'm going to hold on to you, and we're going to have a lot of fun. We get to go, every day we get to go out somewhere new and propose on building, a wonderful new hospital for Indian Health Services, or a wonderful new school for Yuma Union High School. And it's a lot of fun. And so I think that's what they really need to focus on. There's a ton of dead end people in all kinds of jobs. And if you're going to be like that, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, right? You're going to be at the bottom. And so there's no limit to what a smart, driven young person can do if they just apply themselves in construction or in any other fields.
You came off mute.
Yeah, I was waiting. I just wanted to mention that when I started teaching the engineering class, incorporating the ABEC to it, it was really helpful because there were the connections to being able to see the opportunities that there are, what they needed to do to, how much schooling they had to go to, what they were needing to do to get into that career, and the realities of it, you know, like it was real to them. So being able to know that it's real, or that they can do it, makes it so much easier to get them involved and starting to look for their careers and stuff. And like we took them on a field trip to the desalting plant, so the chemical engineer could talk to them about what he does as a chemical engineer, and how he incorporates, or what he does at the desalting plant, but that it's here in Yuma. A chemical engineer, you know, is here in Yuma, what he does and how much he gets paid and what he had to do to go to school. And so like having Clint at the construction, you know, he's real, that it's something that they could achieve, and it's here in Yuma. I mean, that's all they know right now is Yuma. They're not thinking outside the box, and all they know is what their parents do, or not to say that that's bad, but you know, they don't know anything other than what they're exposed to. So it's really nice to incorporate the ABEC, because having the ABEC portion of it helps make that connection, to make it real to them. That's what I want.
Awesome. Thanks.
A lot of, you know, of course, Yuma kids, they feel like there's no opportunity here. They got to go to Phoenix or Tucson. And that's not true. I think there's opportunity everywhere, you know, maybe more obviously in Maricopa, but you know, with the right perspective and hard work, you know, we're trying to keep those talented young people here, because when they leave, it's hard for me to get them back. It's very expensive too. And so, you know, there's more than they realize right in front of them. And it's probably more than what their parents realize. And that's why they're just, you know, being painted a picture by what their parents know. And so that's why we say we got to win the hearts and minds of the moms of the kids, you know, and just, you don't have to be in construction. I think you just got to keep your eyes open. You know, there's a lot out there in front of you. I mean, the ag's huge. You think about ag workers and they think, well, I don't want to be out there. You know, it's a lot of hard work, but, and it is hard work. They're probably the hardest working people I've ever seen down here in Yuma in the fields. But, you know, as you go up the, you know, the ladder there, you know, probably some of the richest people in Yuma are the farmers, you know, and so there's a whole gradient, you know, that I think that fits everybody. Not everybody can be at the top, obviously, but, you know, I don't think anybody should not pick a career because they don't feel like they're going to make enough money, right? That seems like a bad choice to me. I think you should pick a career that you enjoy and go for it. And then, you know, you can only spend so much money anyway, you know. I tell everybody the year I made the most money was the most miserable year of my life. And I didn't buy nicer clothes or buy a nicer house or drive a nicer car. It wasn't worth it to me, you know? And so at some point it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't come for nothing. You're going to have to work for that money. And there's a lot of stress that goes with that. And so I think there's a happy medium there for, you know, what you enjoy doing and being happy. But my kids think they need to make $9 million a year when you ask them what they want to be when they grow up. Right. And that's something else we should try to curb. That there's a lot more value in being happy every day than trying to make an extra 20 or 30 grand a year. It's
a great.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. I'll pass it to Aaron there.
I was just going to say a great message. We'll leave it just for another 30 seconds or so in case anybody has any questions. But I think kind of that bookend, Clint, of starting out with kind of this idea of those important problem solving, communication skills, you know, being able to identify the problem. I'm looking at all of our educators here that, you know, teach in a variety of areas or counsel students in a variety of areas. And that idea of being able to identify the problem, not just jumping into a solution, right? And regardless of what field you're in is so critical. So a great message to deliver. And then kind of that bookend of delivering that message of find something that you are passionate about. I typed it in the chat. I'm going to share that with my 17-year-old son, who's a senior in high school, is make yourself useful and someone's going to pay you a lot of money. Regardless of what you choose to do, make yourself useful and find something that you're really passionate about. Neat message to carry back to students. while I've been vamping, has anybody come up with any questions that they want to jump in before we close out?
So Aaron, I'd say share my info. If I can help anybody on this call, reach out to me. I might not be able to build you a dugout in Phoenix, but you know, at your school. But if you guys need any material, or if you wanted Fabian to do a surprise visit to one of your classes, right? Something like that, let me know. I'd be willing to make that happen. So
Fabian on a world tour, that would be
signing autographs for everybody.
well, and sometimes folks really take Clint up on that offer. Even if you're not in the Yuma region, you may be thinking about an industry partner in your region that you want to work with. And maybe they're waiting for an email from a guy like Clint that says, hey, we've been working with schools in Yuma, and here's what we do. Because sometimes it's just that trepidation of, well, what exactly are we going to do, and what are we committing to? And sometimes hearing from another industry partner, regardless of if it's construction or something else, to say, yeah, we did it, and you know what, it worked out really well, and it's been really successful for us. So definitely take him up on that offer as far as making some of those connections, and it might be helpful in your own region, even if he's not going to come build you a baseball dugout. But being able to make some of those connections, and that's what hopefully this experience is all about. With that, we are right up against time. I just want to thank Clint for taking the time today to provide some information for all of us. I know I learned a lot, and it was really neat to hear about the work that you're doing out in Yuma, particularly with the school partners. And I think the resources that are being shared with our school partners will be really helpful for them as well. And really appreciate everybody being on the call this afternoon. I know that these are just some really unusual times, and so everybody's juggling a lot. I did get a text from one of your colleagues about just some last minute carpooling changes and such. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if some of those issues are arising. You've got my cell phone number to text me or give me a call. We want to make this as easy as possible for you and as informative. Don't forget, we're recording the sessions, so you'll be able to take a look at those again. But thanks, everybody. Great to see you this afternoon. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, same time, same place, and for our next session on the externship. Have a great night, everybody. Clint, thanks again.
Yeah,
Paul,
I enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
thanks, everyone.